When I look back to it, really, as I'm getting more, um, embracing the process more and more, that's when it clicked on me. I know you have that guarantee that you'll pass. No offense, but I didn't believe you in the beginning because I'm like, no one can really guarantee that. But when I was like, wait, come to think of it, the only way I can fail is if I quit. Because if I keep going and doing this process, I'm gonna get this. And so I just keep pushing. And so
Welcome to another episode of the CPA Exam Experience podcast from Superfast CPA. I'm Logan, and in today's episode, you're going to hear Nate and I talk to Ron. Now, Ron has an awesome story. He originally got his accounting degree in the Philippines, and after receiving his degree, he really wanted to jump into his career and get a job and start working on that, so he kind of put CPA to the side, and for a long time, he was just working. Later on, he was working for a CPA, and they mentioned that he would be a great CPA, so he decided to kind of start thinking about it and wanting to pursue it, and eventually he decided to do it, and he jumped right in. He bought a review course after doing a lot of research. He also found Superfast CPA pretty early on and started implementing the strategies. And Ron is a great example of being totally immersed in the CPA exam experience. And one of my favorite things that he talks about in the interview that I want you to look for is how he made flashcards. He made a really big effort to make simple and easy to use flashcards, and that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with Superfast CPA and the CPA exam in general, is making good flashcards. So make sure you pay attention to how he made flashcards in a way that was simple and easy for him to use. And as you'll see throughout the interview, he did really well on the exams. Even with a few hiccups, he was always able to come back. And another thing that he really utilized was the Superfast CPA forum. He loved the community that was there, so listen for that as well. And finally, he was even able to do this when his family had some health struggles and he kind of had to put CPA on hold a little bit for a time. He was still studying a little bit, but he was able to come right back, even with those health struggles, and keep studying for the exams and pass the exams. I think this is a great interview, and before we jump into the interview, I just want to give everyone a reminder about the Superfast CPA training webinar on superfastcpa.com. It is only 1 hour, it is free, and we will show you how to pass the CPA exam without wasting months or even years of your time. The link will be in the description of the podcast episode or in the YouTube video, so make sure you go check that out. And with all that said, let's dive straight into the interview with Ron.
So let's just go back to the very beginning. When you first decided you were going to do the CPA, where were you at in your career and what made you decide to do the CPA?
So when obviously I had my degree years ago, back in the Philippines. And when I graduated with the accounting degree, there's an option to do the CPA, but that's something I never really intended to do in the beginning, because even going to college in the Philippines is just really hard to maneuver that, and with there's no student loan, stuff like that. So going to college is just really a financial burden. So when you graduate a 4-year degree, your first plan is to find a job. And so going on CPA review and all that is more money and all that. So I didn't really intend to do that. But at the back of my mind, it's always like, I wonder how it's going to be like. Years later, I just got into the career and just continue working, but never really looked into that and plus I ended up meeting CPAs that unfortunately weren't very pleasant to deal with. So like, I don't want to be like them, if these are the CPAs, I don't want to be like them. Until I worked for a CPA, and she's the first one that said, you have the making of a good CPA, you need to pursue that and all that. At that point, I have to consider having to get my paperwork done from the Philippines and back here and all that stuff. So I know it's going to be a big hurdle. But I start digging into it, asking the South Carolina Board of Accountancy to see what I need to do and all that. And so then COVID happened. And so obviously everything stopped. And actually it worked perfectly because, like, I'm sure this is like common thread. A lot of the ones that is staying at home, like, I have all this time, this is the perfect time to do that. So that's what I did. And I did search for how to do this process, and I came across different there's a lot online, and I actually signed up for one that's Superfast, and ended up becoming more like a marketing thing, because I keep getting emails and you do this and guaranteed all that. So it just got really old. So I stumbled upon super fast. So, and after that, the rest is pretty much history. So to answer your question, it wasn't really like a plan. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
It just happens that it goes.
So what were you working in at that time with the lady that suggested you get your CPA?
I was dealing with small business owners, and that was really the first introduction for me to deal face to face with small business owners, and I fell in love with that. Being able to partner with them, and they have all these questions. They're so passionate about what they're doing, but obviously they don't know any part of the accounting side of things,
Yeah.
and that's where they come to us. And so just being able to explain things in their in their language, so to speak, in ways that they understand, it's very rewarding for me. So that just kind of start that desire to be able to provide more, to give more, and to help small business owners.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you did start to study, you mentioned some other program, but did you have a main review course you started with to actually study?
I did in the beginning because I did a lot of research, and a lot of the feedback I got is sign up for free trials. A lot of them, like, they'll give you a couple 2 weeks. Some of them will give you a whole month just to kind of see where it is. And at the same time, I was searching, what people would recommend and all that. So I didn't until I think I signed up for Superfast, that your free hour, 30
Yep.
minute thing.
The free webinar.
Yep. So I think I actually already signed up for Superfast before I even did the webinar, because I just the whole paradigm shift of how to approach it. It made a lot of sense, but I know it's going to be a challenge because, like a lot of people, my mindset is you read the book, you read you watch the videos, and then you take the quizzes, the test. And so flipping it upside down is like, this actually makes a lot of sense. And the fact that the whole super fast, very um very enticing, very inviting, because you can actually, like, okay, I can do this in this such a month and then be done with it. Not true, at least for me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's one thing I've learned really is, you can plan it, but you have to be able to be flexible enough to work around it. And super fast CPA approach just makes it a lot easier to work around that. I think one of the benefits that I've seen is, like you would always talk about, is you can actually live your life while still studying. Now, it's not the full life that you used to, like I said, I'll be driving, and instead of listening to music or some podcast, I'll be listening to my study notes. And when I get tired of that, I listen to your interviews to kind of give me that push, that
Yeah.
inspiration, that motivation. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, but eventually you got a full review course to study
I
with
did.
each day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And interestingly, because the way I decided to choose what I chose is based on, I feel like the video, the teacher, I'm not gonna plug it in because free advertising, but the guy who was the big push of it is the way he presents the lesson. It's very lively, it's just like really short videos, and it's true.
You can say it. Are you talking about Roger?
Yeah.
I could, yeah, definitely.
So so that was one of the main selling point for me is the presentation of the video, which is very true. You won't feel bored watching it because it's very animated. It makes a lot of sense. But when I apply the super fast CPA approach, I didn't watch the video anyways. I would watch it when I'm struggling with certain areas, but for the most part, I just like use it to just kind of change things a bit, but not really for for the whole study.
Okay.
So you were saying that you pretty much had the super fast strategies before you even got Roger. Then you got Roger, and what was it like to jump into studying? Like, what was it like at the beginning?
So when I started, I think the main thing for me that I have to really wrap my head around is this paradigm shift of, you take the test and you don't get hung up on the results in the beginning, the planting the seeds process and all that. and then you continue and you add more. All that, it's something that I've never done before, obviously, and to a point really that once I get used to it, it became a system. It became like second nature for me to just
Mhm.
go straight to the test. And when I obviously in the beginning, and you have to understand too, when I started studying, I haven't been in accounting school for years, so
Yeah.
a lot of the things either I've never heard of or I have forgotten. And so the review part's not really a review for me anymore. It's like, back to school. So just going straight to the questions and having the mindset of this is like a practice of the actual exam. I think it positioned me to a point where, I'm not, like you said, you're not mastering it. You're making yourself familiar with the material to a point where, if it gets thrown at you, however it's asked, you'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah. Um, so so when would you study? Were you following the kind of the pro course strategy exactly, trying to do 2 hours in the morning?
Yep, I did it to the T in the beginning. I think a lot of the, in the community, super fast, a lot of people try to change it too fast, too soon, where they're trying to customize it to their liking. Whereas they should, what I did is I did it first to the T, and then when I start getting used to it, then like what I'll probably do, I do better with this way with the number of questions or that. But I really didn't change much. I know one of the things that you suggested, which is not part of the thing, is you take the exam on a Monday morning. That way you have the weekend to study and all that. I did it in the beginning, but after a while I realized it's best for me to do it in the afternoon because I have that morning to get up, because I would
Mm.
get up at 4:30. That's part of my routine. I get up 4:30, do the 2 hour thing, get ready for work, and then throughout the day I would do the notes when I can. The quizzes is just like my to do thing. It's just always in front of me. And then of course the flashcards. I think that's the one that I kind of struggle a little bit because that's something that I'm not used to. When I did it in the beginning, I overdid it. I'm like making flashcards for just about everything, and then I'm
Yeah.
like I have this stack of flashcards like I don't even understand. So it's another thing, one of those that I have to learn what works best for me. So yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point where you said to start out with, I followed everything from the pro course. And yeah, I mean, especially if someone finds us and they've been struggling, I think that is super important because it just gives you this proven framework for every aspect of the study process. And, once you start passing, or even when your study process starts working and is clicking, and if you
Right.
can tell if your study process is working, if you're understanding the material, and conversely, it's very clear if it's not working. Um, but yeah, I would really recommend people not make up their own version of the study process until they know they have something that's working, and then you can kind of tweak things. So yeah, I
Right.
like how you explained that. So with the flashcards, you were making too many in the beginning, but how did that evolve? Did you switch to normal notes, or what happened with that?
In the beginning, I was like, what would work best for me as far as where I am? Would it work best for me if I have actual 3x5 index cards, or, I have Quizlet on my phone as well. So I did that. One thing I realized took me more time to put it together than actually use it for my benefit.
Hmm.
So that's when I realized, this is taking me more time to just put it, because sometimes I can get too OCD with, okay, the bullet points, and like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Quizlet, because you can go too crazy with, drop down and bullets and all that
Yeah,
stuff and in different fonts. And to a point where like I got lost to the system instead of actually using it for my
gotcha.
benefit.
Yeah,
And so at the end, I actually just ended up using flashcards, and I would do acronyms. I would do arrows, or different variations of diagrams. Like formulas. Different things that, even simple things like the simple formula for cost of goods sold or reconciliation. Those things is very helpful for me. So what I did is I would do something that I can easily glance. I don't recommend this, but even when you're driving, you just pull up a card, like you look at it like, oh, I know what that means. Like, the variances, greater than, less than, things like that, that I can just
Yeah.
easily pull up, and my brain tells me like, oh, that's what it was. So that helped me. So I didn't make a lot of those because I'm just really pulling the ones that are like general idea that it'll be helpful for me to remember. Because the part of it is, if simple things like that, if I can do it in my head, I know it's going to save me a lot of time during the exam, as opposed to trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's
Right.
that's how the flashcard helped me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like what you said there, like kind of simplifying the flashcards, because I think that is something that most people, when they think of a flashcard, they don't really think about making it simple. But that's the best way to make a flashcard, is to have like something so simple that when you see it when you're even if you're driving, you can just like you're recalling just a small piece of information. It's better to have, 5 flashcards that are each on something simple than one flashcard that just has like a paragraph that you're supposed to remember, because you're not
Yeah,
going to remember that.
yeah. If I put too many words in a flashcard, I'm already lost.
Yep, I'm glad you
Yeah.
said that.
And also making your flashcards very personal to you, almost to the point of, if someone else looked at them, they wouldn't know what you
Right.
mean, almost
Yeah.
like your own shorthand.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah. If you're just copying and pasting actual lines from, outside of your, or directly from your review course, you might as well be using the flashcards that came with your review course at that point. And it's not to write the flashcard in your own words means you are understanding it well enough to distill it down into your own words. So that's like half the battle.
Yeah, totally understand. Totally agree.
So you got into it. How was everything, like studying and getting to your first exam? Like, how did your first exam feel?
Like I said, because this whole CPA journey is like something that I pushed aside, and also like I was really wanting it, but there's also fear of failing, the whole 9 yards and the whole process. And so when I finally got my first MTS, I was too excited out of my beside myself, that to me just being able to sit down is like I'm already a CPA. So I know that's far from the truth, but just the fact that I'm able to sit in and being able to take the exam was just, especially for someone who's hasn't been in school for a long time, and you just live your life and have a career and all that. Going back to that mindset is just like, man, I can actually do this. So when I took my first exam, I wasn't even thinking of like, I'm gonna pass this. I just so excited to be able to take the exam, because I put so much, which is it's true, because the profession of being CPA is very highly regarded which is thinking about it. You don't meet a lot of people that say, hey, I'm such and such, I have MBA. You don't say that, but when you say I'm a CPA, that's all you have to say. Same thing, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor. It already sets the tone for you. So I have that such high regard for the profession, that when I took the exam, I feel like I'm already part of it, which I was in a part, but I still need to pass the exam. So I didn't do very well. But that's also where the strength of Superfast CPA for me is. When I failed, I already have a game plan, what I need to do next. I already have what I need to, obviously, as we all know, when you get a not pass, a failing grade, it doesn't really tell you which questions you didn't correctly answer. It's just so broad. And so it's almost like it's not really helpful, at least not for me. But when I go back to my study course, I can look back and say, yeah, these are areas that I kind of like flew through it, or I kind of really wasn't really being brutally honest to myself, that I know I didn't really get it. I just, because, out of familiarity or something that, hey, that's fine. So I have to do that with me to evaluate how my study quality really is, how the planting the seeds in that area really work. And I'm the only one who can answer that. I
Yeah.
can't go back and say, well, I didn't have all the materials. But I don't know if Nate, if you probably don't remember, but the first time I got my failing grade, my first response was, maybe this review course is not sufficient, which I'm sure that's not uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
You question, maybe there's not enough material here. And your response to my email was, I would hate to recommend you to go a different route because you're probably going to get the exact same thing.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
just different layout, just different,
Mm-hmm.
how do you do it, but it's the same material. So I stuck to that and really dig into what is the planting the seeds and what areas that I'm actually not utilizing. Like I said, the flashcard is my weak points, but I continued on with the test, the quizzes, and then my usual 2 hour study time in the morning. And I think, when I look back to it, really, as I'm getting more, um, embracing the process more and more, that's when it clicked on me. The only way that I can really fail in this process is if I quit. I know you have that guarantee that you'll pass. No offense, but I didn't believe you in the beginning because I'm like, no one can really guarantee that. But when I was like, wait, come to think of it, the only way I can fail is if I quit. Because if I keep going and doing this process, I'm gonna get this. And so I just keep pushing. And so when I finally get my last passing section, I immediately went back to the community and just keep
Mm-hmm.
like, encouraging people, just keep pushing. The only way you'll fail is if you quit. So don't quit, just keep pushing. And super fast pay format already made it, already laid it out for you to just follow that, especially after you fail. That process of the reader review and using the 2 hour become 4 hours and using, I've done it many times. And so it's just so cool to be able to know that you can go back and have a plan. There's no, I mean, you can take your time, lick your ones and feel bad and be angry at everybody. But then when you wake up, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna keep doing this. And you already have something in front of you that you can just follow.
Yeah, but also what you said was so important after you got that failing score. Um, yeah, there's the plan that we provide via the pro course, but you had to evaluate your own, like, your or the parts of the process to you, and which ones are not working, or which ones do I need to put more effort into, or why wasn't this portion working, like you mentioned, the planting the seeds and then the flashcards thing. uh so when you did that, what were the changes you made, or what did you try to emphasize as you went forward after the first failing score?
The first thing I noticed is I can easily fool myself to think that I got this portion or what question, but not really understanding the concept, not
Yeah.
really understanding the material itself. There again, it's not mastery. I'm not trying to master it, but I need to be able to really grasp it to a point where I can put it in my own words.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to explain it to a kid, I can explain it in a way that I understand it. And so with obviously, as you know, the whole process is just a multiple repetition of the same thing. And sometimes the software, whatever study course you're using, it can shoot the same question to you like 4 or 5 times, and so it can make you think that your test result might go but really good, but a big portion of it is probably a repeat question. So it's not really benefiting you. So to me, I have to go back to those questions where, like, did I just memorize that? Did I just remember that that's the right answer, or do I really understand that? And so when it's asked differently, and I don't know why it is, but the questions in the actual exam sometimes are asked so differently than the review course. But if you understand the concept, you know what's being asked. And so that to me, that's really a key that allowed me to pass it eventually. And also going back to that, knowing what's being asked. I know you've said it many times as I think you already have like you already created a video where you study the planting the seed part. You didn't have that before,
Yeah.
so it would have been very beneficial. But yeah, just understanding what is it in the planting the seeds process really look like, and I think it will differ in each person. Some people can easily like grasp this complicated situation, but others might struggle in other areas, and it's totally okay. You just kind of you take your time. You know your weaknesses. Basically, it's knowing where you're weak at. And I know this is something new too, because in the beginning you didn't have that the buckets where you in the restudy you put different areas where your weak
Oh
points
yeah.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, to me that's golden. We didn't have that in the beginning. I was like, man, this is just really helpful because it allows you to pinpoint the areas that you really are struggling in, and you have to just be brutally honest where you really are struggling instead of just kind of flying through it and just I'm doing well now. And part of it too, because it can get very frustrating and exhausting to having to get hammered on over and over again the same thing, like why I'm not getting this. And
Mhm.
so it just takes a lot of patience to do that.
Yes, that's just a huge key distinction. Kind of everything you said there. Being honest with yourself about, did I kind of just memorize this? Even if you can perform the steps, do you really understand why you're doing each step? Because you can understand or you can memorize the actual answer to a question, but you can also kind of memorize the steps to a specific question. So really, you're always really trying to ask yourself, if I saw this type of question, even if it was presented differently, do I know how to work through this? Like, do I know what's going on here, the what and the why? Yeah,
Right.
that's a huge thing. Um,
And I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
ask, you said about my first exam is, I totally misunderstood. When I was new with the whole process, um, I know the big focus of Super Fast CPA is mastering the MCQs, which is great. That's, I think that's golden too, that you really have to nail it down because, you're dealing with timing, you're dealing with the big portion of that's like 50, depending on which exam you're taking. That's a big portion of that is the MCQ. So nailing that is vital. But when I first started, I completely misunderstood it and took it as the sims are not important. And
Mm,
so I left the Sims part until closer to the exam. And so that's the part where like, I really struggle because it's not MCQs anymore. You have to put numbers, you have to analyze the whole thing, and there's several things you have to look at, work papers and all that stuff. So I think that's something that I had to evaluate when I went back after the first fail. Is like, okay, I need to spend as much time as I could with Sims and be comfortable with it and try to use everything that the study course offered to be able to really utilize it. A big part of that's just familiarization. It's just
mhm.
being able to see what the problem looks like, which one you can attack first, depending on the number of the supporting materials and all that. So it doesn't overwhelm you.
Yeah. Okay. So after that, your first fail, what happened from there until you, uh, passed, got your first passing score?
So I mistakenly and this is another thing, first mistake that everybody should be aware of is, when you take this process, do it on your own. I keep comparing myself with others, like, oh, they took this first, or they had they applied for all four NTS, all that stuff, and almost like I'm trying to keep up with everybody. And the thing is, this whole process can be a sprint for some, it could be a marathon for others,
Yep.
but for you it could be totally different. So it's very tempting to keep looking at others and how you're faring and all that. The point is you just have to pass the exam. So really that's the one goal. And
Mhm.
so it doesn't matter how others do it or how you do it. You have to look for what works for you. So for me in the beginning, I applied for two NTS for audit, not reg and FAR, and I did both. So here I have two NTS that's gonna expire at the same time, So, and I'm doing it through tax season. So I didn't plan it well. And so when I took the FAR first and it failed, here I'm already studying for reg. And so I was like back and forth with each other. Eventually, and I had to tweak, obviously evaluate, and I wish I just took it one at a time, but I'm already there. And so at that point, I ended up just keep trying, and I ended up passing both at the same time. And Nate was like, "You're halfway done. You might as well, get your pick the frame for your certificate and all that stuff." So, which mentally I did.
Yeah.
Which
Awesome.
one is it
So-
on the wall back there? Sorry.
yes, after that, so yeah,
Okay.
The top one.
top one, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. In
Yeah.
in South Carolina, is that where you're at?
Yeah. So I got my I passed my last exam the end of 22, but then we're going through tax season of 23, and I think that's when you reach out for an interview, and we tried to make it work and all that. And so, but I didn't get sworn in, and they have in South Carolina you get invitation if you want to participate in the swearing in. I was like, sure, why not? So I did, and I didn't get sworn in until October of last year. So it took that whole time, because the other thing too is I knew part of this journey is going to have to make up for few units to make up for that required educational background,
Oh yeah.
and also work background and all that. So I've already been planning on that, and I knew that, plus the ethics exam. But at that point, you know what? My goal is to just pass this exam and then just tackle it as I go with that.
Mhm.
So now, on hindsight, I could have, taken the extra units, the required units, alongside it, but I'd rather just focus on the exam and just be done with it, and then just continue on with the rest. That's why it took longer for me to get the actual, the CPA licensure.
Gotcha. Okay. So you end up passing FAR and Reg together, basically. And then how did audit and BEC go? Did you kind of had the process down, and then those were relatively smooth?
Well, I wish I could say that I had the process down, but this is another thing, another beauty, another strength of Superfast CPA is in the middle of that, life happened. So my middle daughter, as I was studying for FAR and Reg, and then I passed them, my middle daughter had health issues that she started developing seizures. And so during that time, we had to deal with hospitalization and doctor visits and all that. So life really got in the way of, of the process. And, I knew at the back of my mind, my clock is ticking and there again, because I passed both the same time, they're going to expire at the same time. And so I just can't get myself to a point where I'm going to have to do those two again. So I tried to make it work even with the life issues and all that, but it was so hard. So I had to, in a way, took several months. I didn't completely stop, but I can't get to the point where I was, as far as getting up and doing the whole thing, because I'm running around different things, doing different things, and in the middle of that there's some job changes as well. So there's a lot of things happening while all this is going on. But when I finally able to get back, Superfast CPA format is already there. So I just get back to the routine of, getting up early. That's the hardest part. And then doing the planning the Cs and doing my my notes and the quizzes. And it just, it's a lot easier to jump back in. I didn't have to start from scratch, and during those times, the one thing that I didn't stop, that I continue doing, is the mini quizzes. So I feel like at least I, it's still going fresh. And then when I can drive, at that point I was working from home, so I don't have drive time anymore. So my whole listening to the audio notes is gone. So I would do that when I'm mowing, when I'm doing the kitchen or whatnot. I have something plugged in my ears, listening to Nate's voice, and just over and over in my head. So.
Yep. Okay. And So once you kind of got back in the groove, which one did you take third?
I did audit third, and surprisingly, I actually enjoyed it, and I struggle with it because in my study, in my routine, I've been getting the greatest compared to reg and FAR as far as my scores. So it built my confidence, made me think like, I'm ready, because I don't really have any reason not to think that way, because
Mhm.
there again, I'm just basing on what I've experienced with FAR and reg, and with audit, I feel like everything's just coming easily for me. I know it's the wordiest exam, and so just going through the process of understanding what the question is, what they're asking for, that was the challenge. But like I said, in my scores are great. So when I failed the first time, I was so surprised. I'm like, what am I missing here? So I had to actually go back to the pro videos to see like, what am I missing here? I think at that point you already have the buckets approach. I
Mhm.
can't remember, and so I was able to apply that and just really narrow down what areas am I really missing here. And so after that process, I can't really recall what it was that's causing it. But and sometimes I'm wondering too, if are the questions in my review course a lot easier than the actual exams are. So when I was able to kind of figure it out, it made more sense, and I was able to get back on it. And then I took BEC.
Okay. And how does so where you didn't go to college in the United States, right? Like you didn't
Correct.
do yeah. So
Yeah.
BEC is kind of like a conglomeration of the business core, like what most
Right.
people do in their undergraduate. So did you
Yeah.
find that pretty difficult, or how was BEC to you?
You're right. BEC just so much almost like a concise version of your 4-year degree course. Basically,
Yeah.
you're doing economics, you're doing all these things, and then plus the written communication and all that. Um, and there again, you back to the mindset of comparing to, what others say, how others' experiences are. I think the common um, um, observation with BEC is the easiest supposed to be.
Mhm.
And so I knew enough not to go in there because I already done three. I knew enough not to go in there thinking, "Oh, this is going to be easy." But that wasn't easy though. It was still a challenge to not think of it as easy, because it's completely different. So it didn't. I didn't really struggle much with the fact that my undergrad is from the Philippines, because the format there is pretty much designed after the U.S. So there's not
Okay.
much difference. So, but where it was challenging is just trying to getting quiz or ask for something that you've learned 2 decades ago. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
so just kind of the material with Superfast is a good format to just kind of pick and choose what they could ask. And I actually ended up signing up for a free trial of Becker, just to see, because there again, I'm here with doing well in my course, but then like, why am I struggling here? So when I got the free trial for Becker and I just did BEC, the questions are totally different, but I knew the answer, it was just different. So it gave me, I think it pushed me to think differently when a question is asked. I may know the answer, but if it's asked differently,
Mhm.
it trips me off. And so after that, it gave me more perspective, more perspective to how it needs to be answered. But also um, the written exam, my course didn't have a format of what the examiners are looking for. And
Oh,
so if you just have to be concise, you have to, you shouldn't use this and all that. That was very helpful for me, because when I first took it, I was just so thrilled that this is my last one. I actually put a note to the examiner, like, thank you so much for, all this, like, wait, that doesn't count. So that's probably why I didn't make it the first time. But then when I did it again, I already knew that, you have to be precise with the answer. You have to, you know, you can actually copy and paste all this the question, so you are actually capturing the exact wording of the question, and then you just expound on it. So it was very helpful. So I think that's what pushed it for me to get the passing grade.
Awesome. So after that whole journey, I mean, what was it like to get your fourth passing score and just realize you were done?
It was unreal. It was like, I can't believe, like, is it over? Now at the back of my mind, I'm still kind of like, well, I still have the ethics exam, I still have to do the
Yeah.
schooling, I still have to all that. But I knew if I did that, if I was able to do that, I can do anything. And I know, I don't, do you still do the goals in the beginning?
The
Yeah,
motivation
like
sheet.
the
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep, that's still in there.
that is very important for me, for my this whole journey, because I knew I have something that's bigger than me, that I need to look forward to. And I intentionally didn't put anything there that has anything to do with material, like more money or all this stuff. The one thing I actually tried to look for it before the interview, but
Mm.
life just happened, I
Yeah,
couldn't find.
no worries.
But I still remember the first one I put there is, I want to do this because I want to show my kids how to persevere.
Yep.
Despite whatever life throws at you, that you can persevere. What perseverance really look like. And so, when I first started with this, the first thing I googled is like, how old is too old to take the CPA exam? It's almost like the answer is like, there's no age limit to this. You can take
Mhm.
regardless. And so I knew it's gonna be a um, big task to do. And so when I jump on it, that's the first thing I wrote in that goal is, I want to do this so I can show my kids what it looks like to persevere. And I have that piece of paper in front of me in my little corner where I study, so I can always keep looking at it.
Yeah.
And looking back, it's really, really what pushed me to, the times when I don't really want to get up at 4:30, rolling out of the bed in the middle of winter just so you can study.
Yeah.
it's the worst feeling ever. And then when you go out there, you feel like everybody's just going on with their lives and life's just going. And here you are, you're stuck with this, trying to study, understand this concept in CPA exam. And that's also where the strength for me, the benefit of the community, is you go in there and you're really interacting with people of the same mind. They're in the
Mhm.
same concept, the same mind frame. You're basically just, misery loves company, right? So you're just like, hey, we're here all together, we're all bleeding, but we're fine, just keep pushing. And it's pretty cool to see all the wins and all the people, what they're doing, what clicked on them. And then come alongside with those that are really struggling to say, man, I fail again. And to me, that's just my heart. When I see someone like that, I just, private message them or put a comment in their post and say, the only way you'll fail is if you quit. So don't quit. Just keep going at it. So to me, that's really the joy of the community.
Yeah.
Something I don't think any the other has that to offer.
Yeah. And I mean, I appreciate you being active in the forum. That helps a lot. I mean, for the forum to be helpful, it requires a certain amount of users to actually use it and be posting and stuff. So yeah. We kind of went through everything. The last thing we always ask, even if it's stuff we already covered, what would be your top 3 tips to people that are still struggling and trying to figure out their own study process?
The number one is do your thing. It's your thing. You run your pace, set your pace, and stay consistent. It's very tempting to compare and look around and see how people are doing. You know, um, just keep at it. I think that's the main thing. There'll be a lot of times where you feel like you just want to give up. Just the only way you'll fail is if you quit. So don't quit. The other thing is um, really utilize what Superfast Pay offers. From the notes to the quizzes, all the way down to the community. It's such an encouragement knowing when someone else understands what you're going through, and it's okay to break away from Nate's notes, but use that to listen to podcasts, so you
Mhm.
can get some, your fire can be lit up, and you'll be fired up again, like, yes, I can do this, because there's so many stories out there that will just really encourage you to just keep going. And that's the part that's really hard when this is how it can take too long for others, and some faster than others. And again, it goes back to point one: is just do your thing, and um, and then just set that goal. To me, having that goal in front of me, knowing that why am I doing this? Because when things get too tough, too hard, that's when you're really gonna go back to why am I doing this? You don't know how many times I ask myself, why in the world am I doing this? Why? And having those goals in front of you is just really a great reminder.
Yep. Yeah, I like all that. Someone on one interview mentioned that same idea, to just kind of immerse yourself in everything that we have to offer, like the podcast, just everything. Like
Yeah.
that's part of the strategy itself. Watch the pro course videos, follow the strategies until it clicks for you. Obviously, our study tools let you rack up study time all throughout the day. But I do think that the podcasts are so helpful that it's almost as valuable as
Yeah.
study time itself. Maybe a half hour, an hour a day of listening
Right.
through the podcast. So yeah, I would agree. Well,
And
go ahead.
I was just say I actually remember things I learned from the podcast, from the interviews, like, oh, I'd never look at it that way. And so it may not be directly related to the actual studying, planting the seeds, but having that mind frame of like, yeah, that actually makes sense, or yes, I can totally relate to that. There's so much strength to knowing that you're not at it alone, and someone else has been through it, and it's very encouraging.
Yeah, that idea that everything connects. That's true as well. All right, well, yeah, it was fun to do the call, Ron. Finally meet you, hear your story.
Pleasure.
Even though it didn't work out last time, but now we've done it. So, yeah, I'm glad you found us eventually, and that it worked, and now you're a CPA. So, congratulations.
Congrats, Ron.
Thank you. Yeah, I still go back to the community from time to time and just put fire on those people.
I've seen you in there, and I appreciate that too. I know that most people, as soon as they're done, they're like, peace, I'm never your app, I'm never visiting this website again.
Yeah, I gain a lot from people's feedback, and so it's not fair for me to not pay it forward, especially for some. As a matter of fact, when I run into people that's taking the exam too at the Prometrics, we would, while we're waiting, like, so what section are you doing? And we're back and forth, and I'll always say, you need to look up Superfast CPA. It's the way to go.
That's funny. I've never thought of that. I could pay someone to just hang around all the Prometrics and corner people when they come out. That's hilarious.
They're desperate, man. They need that. Here's a lifeline. It works.
That's funny.
All right, that was the interview with Ron, and I'm sure you found that super helpful, and I think it was an awesome interview. I loved that he was able to totally get immersed in the Superfast CPA experience, studying in the mornings, studying throughout the day, making awesome flashcards, and especially being a huge part of the forum. People listening have maybe seen him make posts on the forum, and he was a great resource to other people. And he also received a lot of help from the forum, because that's what the Superfast CPA forum is about helping each other and helping each other answer questions. And his story goes to show that no matter where you are in your life, no matter what problems you might experience during the process, like maybe even health struggles with a family, you can come back and you can pass these exams. As I close out this interview, I just want to give everyone one more reminder about the Superfast CPA training webinar on superfastcpa.com. Again, it's only 1 hour, it is free, and we will show you how to be effective and efficient with your CPA exam study process. Also, make sure to share this podcast with anybody you know who is going through the CPA exams. This podcast is the best free training resource out there for CPA exam candidates. If you like the episode, make sure to leave a rating in your favorite podcast app or like and comment on the YouTube video. Thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.